Welcome to Horizons of Thought. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the diversity of religion. When I was a young man going to university, it was very common when you talked about religion with your friends to hear people say, all religions are basically the same, and they teach roughly the same things. And I remember thinking to myself, what? That makes no sense at all. Religions are really extremely different from each other. And it's one of the first things that people who teach comparative religion have to introduce to people and make very clear to them. Incredible diversity between different religions and even within religions. Even the definition of religion is extremely different between religions. For instance, in Judaism, the first 5 books of the Old Testament are sometimes known as the Torah, the law. And that's basically what they are. They are a set of books that are describing laws for a new society that would later be called Judaism. In this case, there's a very clear connection between the religion and the legal systems that's going to govern the government and the society. In Christianity, however, you had quite a change. At one point, one of the Jewish leaders meeting Jesus asked, should we pay our taxes? Because lots of people did not particularly like the Roman government and did not like paying taxes, especially given the corruption of tax collectors in that system. And Jesus said, hand me a Roman coin. And so out came a Roman coin, and on the Roman coin, he said, who's this image? Holds up the coin, there's an image on the coin, and the people go, that's the image of Caesar. And Jesus' reply is, well, you render to Caesar that which belongs to Caesar, and you render to God that which belongs to God. And therein you have, right at the origins of Christianity, a kind of separation of church and state, that there are some things that belong to governments that are not necessarily part of what it is we believe, and that we still have to exist within governments that don't agree with us. If you then move on to Islam, you have a very different story that comes back to Judaism again. The notion being that religion and government are entwined so thoroughly that many in the Muslim world are quite confused by what they see in the Western world. They see lots and lots of decadence of various kinds, pornography, prostitution, all sorts of things that they see as sinful or haram. And they see this as being Christian. Because if there's no distinction between government and the rules and between the religion, and they see in all these Christian countries these things going on and no government opposition to them, that must mean that Christianity endorses prostitution and pornography. You can understand how very different those two definitions of religion can be and how they can create confusion in people's interactions. So when I would hear things like all religions are basically the same, I would go like, what are people talking about? But there's actually a few things they could be talking about. One of them, and I'll pull up a quote right here and read it to you, is from Edward Gibbon in The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. In this, the quote is, the various modes of worship which prevailed in the Roman world were all considered by the people as equally true, by the philosopher as equally false, and by the magistrate as equally useful. So there is, in that statement, something that goes on in the world today. If you see lots and lots of different religions around you, what you might find is you want, as the people, to think of them as all equally true, because this is a method that you're using to try to get along with people that you actually disagree with by making the claim, oh, well, they're all basically true. We can get along because they're all basically true. It is a way of trying to get along without having to resort to a notion of tolerance where you go, no, actually, I think your religion is wrong, or I think that there are things I disagree with you on this particular point, but I'm going to agree to disagree and get along with you as a person. There are different philosophical ways of dealing with that issue. Another thing that goes on with religion, and this is really important, is that people get incredibly confused by each other, not just in the structure of religion, but even what people are trying to say. So there is a story of the Apostle Paul trying to go into a philosophy square and have arguments with several philosophers in Greece. And as he's arguing with them, they're like, who is this magpie? He makes absolutely no sense. And who is this Jesus and this Anastasia woman who are both raised from the dead? And the reason why they were so confused is the words he was using that were referring to the resurrection confused them so much that they did not know that he was just talking about Jesus being raised from the dead. They thought they were hearing the name of a woman as well, named Anastasia, in this discussion. And that's how confusing it can get. You don't even understand each other's words to the point where you make basic grammatical failures and basic understanding failures when you're trying to talk to each other about religions. That's how different they can be. It can take a long time for a person of one religion to explain their crazy stories to another person. And that is a fundamental feature that is actually similar in religions. We tend to have stories, and we tend to talk about what it is we believe in those stories, in those parables. And this is true in many, many, many religions. And those stories invariably have mystical elements or strange elements, or elements that seem to anybody, especially if you're an atheist, just to be crazy. They make no sense at all. Who is this sky daddy and this zombie kid? This kind of imagery that comes into people's mind because they're so confused by these stories. And even within religions, there is often a dichotomy of views. Some people take these stories quite literally, some take them partially literally, and some people think of them as purely allegories to get across religious points, a way of storing this knowledge and saving it up and spreading it over time. This is really important. Religions last a long time. As a Christian, my religion spans back into Judaism, going back over 4,000 years. The societies that first began the stories that form the Old and New Testament Bible were so different than anything we understand today as to beggar the imagination. We're talking about societies where people had no concept of how the sky worked, how space worked, how life and death worked, how rain fell, how the oceans worked, and that you could travel on them. Nothing. They just did not understand a lot of these things. Their worldviews and their interactions were so different than anything we have today. And this is true even during the time span in which books in the Bible were written. You have such a huge difference between the early societies in the book of Job from 2000 BC all the way to the societies in 60 AD that were living in a giant interconnected empire full of lots of religions that interacted with each other, which is what you get with the later New Testament books. Incredible differences in society over time. So the stories have to encapsulate ideas that can resonate through the ages across different societies. Otherwise, they're not going to last. You just don't know about religions that fail to solve this problem. The last thing I want to say about why people tend to think of religions as similar is that sometimes their particular religion actually encapsulates the notion that religions are similar to each other in a different way than you might guess. So at one point, Gandhi wanted to negotiate with Muslims during the formation of India. And there are famously lots of disputes between Hindus and Muslims that have rocked Indian history for hundreds of years. And several of Gandhi's followers were saying to him, please don't talk to these Muslims. They're different from us and we're having a conflict with them. And Gandhi is like, I am a Muslim, and I'm a Jew, and I'm a Christian, and a Hindu and a Buddhist. And what is Gandhi trying to say there? Well, if you come from a religion that believes we all came from one source, we are part of this one source, and that one source split into many beings out of a desire for relationship, which then created an enormous amount of confusion in the world and a whole lot of little beings that don't know what they are. If they live and they die and are reborn again, these are fundamental beliefs in a lot of branches of Hinduism. How do you solve this endless cycle of reincarnation in this religion? You truly realize what you are, that you are part of this one central being. And if this is your religious tenet, then you're going to make the argument that all the religions that you are part of all the religions because you And all of the rest of the people in this world are a part of this one being. And so this one being, as it were, made up all the various religions, and it will be brought together into one. And somehow all of the disparate, confusing things in this religion will be understood as you are one. Does not mean that you actually believe the things that Christians or Jews or Muslims believe. It means that you have an understanding that makes an argument that ultimately we are all the religions in one. So when somebody says to you that all the religions are the same, even what they mean by that is going to differ completely. Are they saying it because it's politically useful? Are they saying it because they don't want to fully explore what it means to be tolerant rather than accepting? Are they saying it because it's a tenet of their religion? Or are they saying it because they've never studied religion and they don't know any better one way or the other? This is not such an easy thing to puzzle out. So as frustrating as it is for a religious person like myself to hear somebody say that all religions are the same when there's such incredible diversity in them, the wise thing to do is to dig deeper and to find out why it is a person is saying this, because there may be really good reasons for them to do so that have nothing to do with failing to understand that all religions are different. Or conversely, they may not know much about religions. And if you talk to them about different religions, they'll go like, whoa, that's really different. I didn't guess that at all. So, yeah, once again, like most of the things I say on this channel, the solutions to many conflicts that you run into are to listen to people, find out more, and draw out more information. And with that, this has been Horizons of Thought. If you like this channel, please subscribe and hit the bell. If you are interested in supporting this channel, please look at the link below and go to Donor Box, and you can support this channel either through a one-off support or through monthly support. Monthly support comes with various benefits depending on the amount of monthly support. So again, thank you, and I will see you in a few days.